Hello and welcome to Work with Purpose, a podcast about the Australian public sector and how it serves the Australian community. I'm Louise MacDonald, Managing Partner, Canberra at EY, and I'm really pleased to be the guest host for today's conversation. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people as the traditional custodians of the land we're recording on today, and pay my respect to their elders past and present. I also acknowledge any other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people listening and recognise their continuing connection to country, culture and community. That idea of connection, of understanding the place you're in and the impact you have is a powerful one. In my experience, some of the most meaningful change happens when leaders take the time to see how their decisions play out across the whole system, not just within their own remit. And that's very much the focus of today's conversation. Every day across the public service, people are making decisions that shape how Australians experience government, often without seeing the moment those decisions land. When services work well, they're almost invisible. But when systems don't connect, when processes are complex, or when people are already under pressure, the experience of government becomes very real very quickly. One of the hardest challenges for large service organisations is bridging the distance between where decisions are made and where services are delivered. Today's conversation is about what happens when the distance is deliberately closed. Over the past year, Services Australia has been running a service delivery immersion program, an initiative that drives and invites senior leaders out of meeting rooms and dashboards and into service centres and frontline environments. It's an approach that goes beyond traditional leadership development and one that was recognised at the IPAAA ACT Spirit of Service Awards in a category celebrating adaptation, experimentation and continual improvement in the face of complexity. To explore this program and how it works in practice and what it's teaching leaders about working across silos, responding to ambiguity and leading in high-pressure environments, I'm joined by Kirsty Kirk, Director of Leadership Programs at Services Australia, and Ken Walker, National Manager, Emergency Response at Services Australia. Welcome, Kirsty and Ken. It's great to have you both here.
Thanks for having us.
It's great to be here.
So let's start with understanding a little bit more about the program. Can you tell me a bit about why this program is so important for Services Australia?
Thanks. The Services Australia SES Immersion program is important because it reconnects the senior leaders with the reality of service delivery. At Services Australia, we deliver a magnitude of services to impacted communities and individuals every day, some of them being at the most stressful point of time in their life. This program gives the leaders the exposure of what it looks like in practice and not theory by seeing and hearing the frontline interactions. It gives SES a deeper understanding of how policy decisions, system settings, the operational constraints play out and impact our customers and staff every day.
And at Services Australia, we are the largest service organisation in federal government. We have over 35,000 staff who work at Services Australia. We have around 183 SES. 37 of those work in service delivery, while the rest actually work in areas of critical support like our ICT areas, our corporate and payments and integrity. And we are very lucky that our SES who work in customer service delivery really are there on the front lines with their staff members. But it's very important for those who aren't working in service delivery every day to reconnect with those staff, go out to service centres, listen to calls so that we are all reminding ourselves every day of why we actually work at Services Australia, and that is to work with everyday Australians and deliver services to people, as Ken said, who sometimes are in the most vulnerable situations in their lives.
So can you maybe expand a little bit on the benefit around the imperative of the program from a service and policy design perspective?
So in government, we work in a service delivery department. We have what we call policy partners at other federal government agencies. And so not only is this important for SES within Services Australia, it has very quickly expanded to inviting policy partners in to actually see their policy in effect. So this is really about the life cycle, showing people what the life cycle of a policy is when it becomes developed and then delivered as a program to the customer. SES get to see staff in action, see how their policy is actually working and being implemented. They also get to see the customer's interaction and how it's actually working for the customer, look at the systems that the staff have to use to be able to deliver these programs. So I think it's the only program in federal government where you get to see that full life cycle. So we have 14 other agencies who are actually taking part in the program, and this started just over a year ago for our SES and has very quickly expanded because we're very lucky in the fact that our executive and also other federal government executive understand the true importance of making sure that we are delivering services that work for the Australian people.
And it is really about making sure that we are putting the customer at the centre of everything that we do. To Kirsty's point, we have a magnitude of policy agencies and departments, and we operationalise that for them as the service delivery arm for government. So it is really important for us to see how that policy translates in real life to these customers. And the SES Immersion program has really assisted in us understanding that, because something may work on paper but may not work in reality. So having the leaders and SES go out and witness that firsthand really does give us that broader understanding of what we need to do as leaders. It also has that connection with our frontline service staff as well as the customer.
It's a really interesting insight that you're sharing. And so just to go a little bit further in terms of what might have surprised senior leaders when they stepped into those service delivery roles, when they were actually on the ground and into customer-facing positions, could you tell me a little bit about what it was that was really new or surprising to them that they might not have expected?
Most of the leaders surprised around the breadth and knowledge and cognitive overload that our staff have to understand for each customer. A customer may come into a service centre or call the agency with a multitude of problems, and that service officer is there to assist, get them back on their feet, ensure that they are on the right payment or service. So a lot of the leaders did walk away really in awe of what our staff do every day to assist the customers. And I think too, it also reignited some of the SES to understand why we do what we do each day. It is really around that service delivery, and that is why we are within the public service. As APS employees, we are there to deliver a service to the public. So it really does get back to that grassroots level and reignite that spark.
Yeah.
And I delivered the program in Perth for the first time last week, and we had a fully external SES cohort. And I was looking back on the evaluations that they did for us, and they also write letters to the staff members that they sit with. And I was looking at some of that before today. And the things that were coming through over the 2 days was the commitment and the professionalism of our staff members. And you have to remember our staff members are APS 3s and 4s. And as Ken said, the amount of work they have to be across to deliver to the customer is quite amazing. And that does really surprise SES from other agencies. But we also have something in that agency that has come through service delivery, and it's something that our CEO has really been talking about a lot. He has these golden threads that he talks about that are really important for that agency, and customer first contact resolution is really important. So if a customer calls about a particular query or an issue that they have, our staff members will also look at that profile of that customer and see if there is anything else that they can help with. Make sure that if they don't have the answer, they can pass the customer on to someone else. And you could see that coming through the program. Everybody would talk about delivering for the customer, having the customer at the centre, everything, the empathy that our staff members have to deliver for our customer shines through every time. We also have simple, helpful, respectful and transparent themes in the agency. And again, every staff member will talk about that. So there's this real culture of putting the customer first at our agency.
So as a result of the program, has there been any fundamental changes that have resulted from having your SES on the front line with staff, either for staff experience or customer experience?
There has been a fundamental shift in the way we do implement policy. A lot of the national managers or SES who work in a program design type role really do then take on feedback from our service delivery colleagues so that we can understand how we are implementing an approach. Does it work for the staff? Does it work for the customer? It really is around trying to navigate some of that policy and eligibility noise that sits there and how we do scale it back. So for a customer perspective, it is seamless. There has also been, I guess, some fundamental changes in the way that it's also the visibility of the SES for the staff. I'm sure Kirsty will touch on the program we have rolled out in multiple locations. And we did that purposely to ensure that, one, we're not just sitting in the Canberra bubble. Customer cohorts, vulnerabilities are very different for each service centre, for each community. So having the SES out and about really helped dissect and break down some of those walls, as well as our staff having the visibility of SES that they wouldn't normally have to them in some of the rural locations.
One of the biggest themes that comes through over all of the programs that we do is SES do walk away with looking for opportunities for service improvements, whether that's within our own agency or external to our agency. Again, there's a lot of the SES walk away saying we really need to ensure that we're reminding everyone that we need to put the customer at the centre of any sort of policy reforms that we do, because they actually get to see how it affects the customer. Importantly, though, it's about the staff as well. So being able to see the breadth and complexity of what we do and how can we make our systems work for the staff so that they can help our customers. Some really big fundamental shifts that we've had through the program is the fact that some of our staff members who take part in this program, and we are across Australia with the program, they may not get a lot of time with SES officers. So the fact that they get one-on-one time with these SES officers, and we do ask them just to tell them about their day and the work that they do. We've had instances where SES have walked away and said, I actually look after that system. I can make that change, which is going to mean that staff member is going to be able to do their job more effectively. Wouldn't have happened if the Immersion program didn't exist. Ken, we were talking yesterday about some mentoring that's actually happening as well, which would have never.
Yeah, so part of the service delivery service zone I used to look after, we hosted the SES Immersion, and a few of my staff walked away with mentors, which is really great because these staff are the future leaders of the APS. So really having that time and value put in where an SES leader is willing to guide them and mentor them through their career really does, I guess, show some of that passion that we do have for supporting our communities and customers, as well as what we can do to help our staff move ahead to become those future leaders.
It sounds like a bit of an unexpected benefit that came about
100%.
through the program. Were there other things that sort of came about beyond mentoring that you didn't expect that had a really big impact on the agency or staff experience, customer experience that you weren't expecting?
So many things, but I will say in our very first pilot that we did do in Canberra, we had just acknowledged the fact that to actually put this program together, there were 30 areas within the agency that had to come together and actually support this for us to be able to put this together. each program that we do has around 40 staff that actually participate. That's a huge load and impost, given that we were doing them about every 3 weeks. We do them every month now across Australia. And in that very first pilot, I just really felt for the staff members who are taking part. Again, some of them, very first time they're dealing with SES, it's very nerve-wracking, as we all know, even though the SES are so thankful for having this time with the staff members. So we'd asked the SES just to write a little thank you note if there was someone that stood out to them or someone they were working with. What we thought was going to be a one-line note has turned into a letter that's actually part of the program now. So each SES will write letters to the staff members that they actually work with during the 2 days. And the things that they say, the contacts that they make, they give out their emails to the staff members. They want to take photos with the staff members. It's just so heartening. And I think it really comes back to the culture in the agency that we're building, that we're making these connections. And both sides are really willing. We have never had staff members say, no, I don't want to be part of this program. It's actually the opposite. From the executive down, people are saying, we want our program in the Immersion program, and we're working really hard to be able to fit everything in. So, and it's just great to see the smiles on the staff members' faces getting these opportunities, but then the awe of the SES of our people on the other side.
And you talked about earlier about empathy and empathetic leadership. It sounds like that's been something like that was always there, but this has really kind of brought it out much more directly. So I'm not sure if you want to make any comments around that, but it feels like that the SES is kind of being on the front line, and that connection with staff has that living the culture and the values of the agency, and through empathetic leadership is really part, like some of the softer skills that have come through to make this a success.
Again, the comments from the SES who are coming from other agencies who I'm sure have amazing cultures in their own agencies, but one thing that they are taking away and they're writing down is to look at that mission statement that we have as an agency. As I said, simple, helpful, respectful, transparent, putting the customer first contact resolution. It didn't matter who you heard from over the 2 days, the staff members would talk about that. But the fact that even I was really surprised in Perth, every staff member talked about how much they loved their work, how so proud they were to work for Services Australia, and there was a reason why they worked here, and that they wanted to work with vulnerable customers. And the staff members do have a load because some of the calls that they get really are complex and difficult cases, but they're so proud of being able to help that staff member, and that really comes through. And it's from leadership from above, but it's leadership from below as well. As we said, leadership at all levels.
Yeah. And I think too, the program really did reinforce the customer complexity, whether it's through their lived experience, the dynamic nature of the community, the different vulnerabilities. Having the SES understand and witness some of those conversations and interactions firsthand really has shaped how we deliver our services, our systems, to ensure that we are looking at it. So that there very much is that empathy piece in there around what is a customer facing, how can we as government ease that burden for them. And having the staff that are empathetic and just wanting to understand and help no matter what the situation is really shone through the staff as the SES witness those interactions.
And even though I know our staff members will say this every day, witnessing the program firsthand makes me so proud to work at Services Australia, and it makes me so proud of the people that we have who do customer service delivery. We really are the exemplars of customer service delivery, in my opinion.
So when we were talking before about customer complexity and some of the outcomes of the program, do you have any observations around how you move from insight to action and lessons from this program about how you work in a huge organisation that's complex in itself, but when you're taking those insights from the front line back into Services Australia and other agencies, what lessons could you share from that work?
In Perth last week, as I said, we had a 100% external cohort of SES. They are very active in wanting to keep those connections going. They were already talking about the meetings that they were going to set up as a cohort. They had lots of ideas of how the program could be extended. They would love if we could extend this program to our EL2s and EL1s in the agency. I don't think we have an issue with people going away and making the change, and we've already seen that happen on many occasions. I had an SES colleague whose daughter plays netball with me talk to me about the program and explain to me how she had already made changes. I think we are very lucky in Services Australia that we have an amazing SES cohort who are very active and want to actively make changes. So this is only helping and supporting that program to go ahead. As part of the evaluation process that we do, and remembering that this is a learning program, so while we immerse people in these situations and have briefings with staff members, this is a learning program, so we go through reflection pieces with them. We talk about the learnings that they're having as they go through the program. We do an evaluation at the set, and we actually ask them, what are you going to take away? What are you going to do when you get back to your workplace? And whilst people may think that's words on a page, we've seen that in actions, especially in Services Australia, but as I said, externally as well, where those connections are being made and kept. And we are working on, but not ready yet, but we are working on a second component to the program so that when SES have gone through the program, what happens next? So there will be what we call a Immersion 2.0, which will be where we have SES come back and we have a different version of the program so that we can talk about, well, you went through the program the first time, what's changed now? We're going to look at a different component of Services Australia. So we're working through that at the moment, and people are already saying to us, when can I get on the second component of the program?
And I think too, the element, Kirsty, that you just touched on around the reflective practices as part of the program, that really does assist us as SES unpacking, one, what we've just witnessed, what we've just watched either a customer or a staff member go through, and really embeds what I can do in my day job to either alleviate a concern. Is there a colleague that I could reach out to make change, or even a quick win for the staff and customers? We did see in some of the programs, there were some sites that had Wi-Fi issues, which was able to be raised to the SES leader, and we were able to address that. There are also some other issues around knowledge base and the learning that the staff go through, and we're able to make these iterative changes throughout the life cycle of the program. But that reflective piece for the SES did really give everybody a broader understanding of, well, where do we fit in this bigger wheel that is Services Australia? How can we make those services simple, helpful, respectful, transparent? How can we make our staff and customers' lives easier?
It's a good reminder that the program is about learning at its heart, and it sounds like through the work it's evolved in some ways to become more than that and had other benefits. But when we've talked a lot about the positives, what might not have worked as well as you had hoped? Where did you kind of come up against challenges or roadblocks in this program?
I think when we started thinking about this program and wanting to put it together, when you think of the scope and the scale, as I said, 30 areas within the agency needed to come together to actually put this program together. There were fears that we wouldn't be able to pull it off, I'm not going to lie. And Ken and I have reflected over this many times because we were both there in the very beginning. But we have been extremely lucky in that we have had the support of our executive through this whole program, and I think that's really important. Our CEO, our Chief Operating Officer, our Services Australia Deputy Officer in Customer Service Delivery, they have all been behind this program and said, whatever you need, go through. We were really lucky to have Ken on the service delivery side when we put the program together because he was able to reach in and get the support that we needed. We went through a process where we did pilot two very different versions of the program to see what would work, and I think that's really important. We did think going in, we had an idea of what the program would be in our minds and found out very quickly that wasn't how the program was going to work. But one thing that was really important is that through those pilots that we did in different locations in Australia, and as Ken talked about, different demographics, different work that staff do in those areas, different expectations, we continually changed the program as we went along. So we didn't say this is what the program is and we need you to fit in with the program. It was actually very much the opposite. We said, this is the program, let's run it. What did you think? What was the feedback? And I still remember our Chief Operating Officer going to the pilot in Hobart and giving us feedback on the spot, and him reflecting months later that was great, that he felt that he was able to help us actually create the program. And every time we do the program, even last week in Perth, I said to the SES what worked, what didn't, what would you like to see in the program? And we continue to iterate as we go. And I think that's really important in the process. We talk about failing fast and failing often. I really don't think we failed. I think we went in with a very open mindset and human-centered design in that we continued to change the program as we went along.
As Kirsty mentioned, we did have multiple pilots, multiple versions of the program, and it was really around the feedback model, that growth mindset. How can we make the program better and fit for purpose? We were taking the secondhand information but translating that into firsthand interactions, and what is that actually going to show us? Every aspect of the agency did kind of want that Guernsey and be that trailblazer to highlight the amazing work that we do. So it was hard for Kirsty and I to kind of pare it back and go, okay, well, what is going to add value for the SES leaders? What are they going to get more than just information on a page? And we trialled a 2-day version, a 3-day version, and we all know how hard it is to get a number of SES offline and the time commitment there. But the amazing part is because of the support we had from the CEO and our leaders, we were able to make it happen. And I think too, for us, it really was kind of that right time, right space, right leaders within the agency for us to progress with this program.
And so where we're at the moment is where you mentioned before, both of you, about moving into version 2.0. So where along that journey are you, and how far away from that next iteration of the program are you, and what are some of the things you're looking forward to there?
We're in the very early stages, I would say, of concept and understanding, because we are still working on putting our own SES through the program. And then, as I said, there are 14 agencies who have asked to be part of the program. And we have to remember that while the program is quite popular, it is an impost on our people who are doing their everyday work. And we don't want this to become something that overtakes from the work that our staff members are doing. So 2.0 is still in that concept stage, and we're still, even though we've been going for just over a year, we still feel like we're in the infancy of the program, because as we said, we are iterating, we are changing. We have more areas within the agency who are asking to be part of the program, so we're working through that. So yeah, I wouldn't want to talk about 2.0 yet, because even in my mind, we're still working that through, but it is really important to have a next stage of this program and to build on what has been created. Yeah, because people ask us what's the formula, and I would say we can't actually answer that, because it's been a lot of goodwill, a lot of hard work. And as I said, we are really lucky in our agency that people want to showcase what we do, because what we do is so important in this agency.
And I think it is around the experiences and that are highly impactful, and that reflection piece. And whilst the Services Australia SES Immersion 2.0 is still in its infancy thought bubble process, I was reflecting earlier around, I was fortunate enough to even host and attend majority of the 6 pilots that we did undertake. And even though I was a service delivery NM at the time, I still learnt something, each of those pilot programs, because of the staff and customer interactions, are so different. Not one is the same. So even if we were to roll out the program and continue it on as it currently is, the SES will still continue to learn and grow because every interaction is different. And I think too, that's one of the advantages of the program and the way the learning team have set it up around that feedback and just tweaking every single version just to make it better and polish it and ensuring that the staff and customers are at the heart.
It's an excellent segue because I was going to ask you both, as leaders yourselves, what would be the lessons you've learned around your own leadership style and reflections leading this program of work?
For me, it is around realistically that authentic leadership. And whilst I am in a leadership role, I'm not expected to know it all, but I can lean in and assist to make staff members' lives easier. And I did also reflect on that as we were going through the pilots, and it was one of the reasons why we were able to get the buy-in from a lot of the areas within the agency is utilising our network and our relationships to bring people on the journey with us. And that really did reflect in my own leadership style and how I build and sustain and maintain relationships across the agency at all levels, but also just being authentic and understanding the narrative of what we want to achieve with the program was one of those, I guess, telltale signs that we were on the right track.
I think pride is a really big one of why are we actually here? Because if you don't work on the front lines in customer service delivery, the work that you do is supporting the staff who do work in customer service delivery. So always remembering and reflecting on if we're putting a learning program together, or in a previous life I worked in policy. So if we're putting a policy together, what is the end state? Who are we actually doing this for? We're doing it for the customer, but we're also doing it to support the staff member. So always remembering that. So that's a great reminder, because I do think our customer service delivery staff absolutely know that. They know why they're here. They know why what their mission is, and they always have the customer at the heart of what they do. So I think that's a good learning for people who don't work on the front lines in customer service delivery. As a leader, being empathetic, I think, is really important and does come through really strongly. And in the program and creating the program, I would say collaboration is key. This program wouldn't have happened without the support of Ken and all of the customer service delivery staff. It wouldn't have happened without our executive supporting us. And it wouldn't have happened without a lot of goodwill from everybody. And on the learning side, our designers, our administrators, our facilitators, there's so much work that goes into this program, but it just feels very seamless now and just continues to go from strength to strength.
It's been such a pleasure hearing how Services Australia's Service Delivery Immersion program for senior leadership is making a difference by stepping into frontline environments, building trust with staff, and working together to turn insight into action. A huge thank you to Kirsty and Ken for joining us, and congratulations again to the team at Services Australia for being recognised in IPAA ACT's Spirit of Service Awards. Work with Purpose is produced in collaboration between Contentgroup and the Institute of Public Administration Australia ACT. You can find past episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. To keep up with all the latest IPAA ACT news and events, sign up to our newsletter at ipa.act.org.au and follow us on socials. I'm Louise MacDonald, and thanks for listening. See you next time.